Hey guys, it's Corbin. So today in this video I'm going to show you how to create a project, the how-tos in Unity, and of course a little bit of the programming and the secret which allowed me to get to where I am today in programming. So first thing you're going to need is you're going to need Unity Hub. If you do not already have the Unity Hub, then you're going to need to download it by going to store.unity.com/download. When you are here, you can click on this. I confirm that I am eligible to use Unity Personal, and then you'll be able to download Unity Hub. I already have it downloaded and installed, so I'm going to move on beyond that point. And if you honestly need more help through that, you can probably watch another how to install Unity Hub tutorial. But I'm just mainly focusing on the actual in-application portion. So first things first is you're probably not going to have anything here, most likely. So you're going to want to create a new project by clicking on New. Now, you may not be given this option, mainly because you don't have anything installed. So in order to install, click on Installs, Add, choose a version. I like to use the latest version. The one I'm using for this video is Unity 2019.3.0A8. So I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to go back to Projects. So you're going to want to create New, choose the location, name your project, My Cool Project, or whatever else you want to name it. And if you're making a 2D scene, of course 2D, because then it optimizes your game for 2D, and same with 3D, it'll optimize it with 3D. You don't have to worry about any of these pieces because we're mainly going to be focusing on the Unity how-tos. So I already got a little scene set up for you. So I'm going to click on this, and it is already open, which is right here. So when you first come into Unity, you're not going to really probably know what to do. So first of all, I would like to recommend having a mouse because you're going to need to be able to right click and move, left click and move, and do all the fun things at the same time. Let's get familiar with Unity real quick. Layout, default. As you can see, I'm using the default layout. I just have things a little pushed out of the way so I can see more of my scene. To the left, you have your hierarchy. You can also move any of these pieces by just dragging the tab to other spots, and then you can kind of play around with all that. After you kind of check things out, console project, inspector, let's say you accidentally closed one. For instance, I closed the inspector tab. To get a tab back, you go to window, look for the tab you're looking for. In this case, I'm looking for inspector, which would be found in general. Then I press that, and boom, there it is again in its own window. Just drag that back over here, and everything's back to normal. And if you ever don't know what you did at all, you can always go to top right up here, which is your layout. Then you can set your layout. I typically play in default. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to show you how to move around in Unity and do things in Unity. So first things first, you're probably going to want to create objects. You're going to want to come over here, click on the big plus icon, click 3D objects, 2D objects, effects. You can go ahead and look around this, but for simplicity in this video, I'm going to just create a basic cube. Now you'll notice right away that you have arrows, and if you don't see arrows, don't worry. You got a couple of tools up here where my mouse is on the top left. You got the hand tool, which allows you to pan. You got the move tool, which allows you to move your object on the X, Z, or Y axis. It also says up here on the top right of the scene screen, the X, Y, and Z axes. Now you're probably going to want to fly around and do things to get different angles and perspectives on your scene. So the thing you can do, which is what I do often, is I hold right click to look around, then I use W to go forward, S to go back, A to go left, and D to go right. You can also use Q to go down and E to go up. So these are the typical controls I use whenever I am kind of just checking out my 3D model, or I'm trying to get a good angle on things to see what things look like from a certain perspective. Moving on from that though, there is the rotate tool on the tool list. You'll see I'm moving around so I can get a better view, because when it's just pure white, it's kind of hard to see. So for your guys' sake, I'm going to come over here to the bottom corner. So you'll see these axes now, this sphere inside of your object. If I click off, I click over here, you'll see the spheres over here now. But the sphere is basically a rotation. You can click on an axis and rotate it like this. So that way it rotates on that axis and like this. You'll also notice that if you do rotate it, you'll see a little angle inside of the box. And it's really cool to play Pac-Man. I'm just kidding. But anyways, that's rotation tool. After that, you have the scale tool. So you'll notice that you can make it longer, wider, or taller. And also, just in case you are all not familiar with, there are these options on the, well, to the right of the tools. You have your center of mass, and then you have your world scale. If I go over here to move, because not you can't really do it with scale. If I go over here to move, you'll notice that local, if I click on it, will turn to global. So if you remember the axis on the top right up here on the screen, you see where it says X, Y, and Z? Well, that's relative to which direction you're looking at. So we know this is X, this is Z, and this is Y. And if we go back over here to local, it's doing its local space. So if we rotate this again and we move it, well, keep a note on this front face. This is its forward direction. If I rotate it, its forward direction will still be its forward direction. It does not care about the orientation. But if we go back over here and click on local and change it to global, then we'll notice that its forward direction or its Z direction is relative to the world, not the object itself. So apart from that, we have the rect tool or the rectangle tool, and I think it's pretty nice actually. It allows you to take an object and do things to it in a very interesting manner, depending on which way you're looking or how you're looking at it. If you ever want to reset all your information, all your stuff, because you're like, I made some changes, I really wish I can just go back to step one, come over here to your inspector tab, right click on transform, and click on reset. And just like that, we got our regular cube back. So again, back over here with the rect tool, you'll see that if I click and hold, we can make it longer, taller, and if I get a different angle on this, different perspective, you'll kind of see that it changes from going to long rectangle to a tall rectangle. Oops. And if you click on this, the lines basically, you'll be able to change its shape just like that. I find it really helpful a lot of the times when I'm kind of just making things fit. Like if I want to up and flush against this line right here, just like that. That's typically what I would do too whenever I'm working in the 3D environment. To the right of that, you have the everything tool. At least that's what I call it. So you can move it, you can rotate it, and you can scale it all at the same time. And after that, there's custom editors, but I do not have any installed, and that's nothing you're going to have to worry about. So it's pretty much just, I'm going to say it, a trash button, because I'm never going to use it until prompted to do so. So now that you kind of are familiar with how to move, go ahead and play around with that, pause the video, and, just get familiar with it. Now we know how to move around, we're going to show you where all the objects are right here under this plus. You can create an empty game object, which is just the transform. You can parent things, and what parenting means is what happens to the thing that's underneath, it'll also happen to the thing that's, well, you'll see. If I move this cube into this empty thing, well, actually for visual sake, I should probably make this something else, shouldn't I? So I'm going to create a sphere. Now we have a sphere and a cube. You can see it by moving around their relative positions to one another. Now if I put the cube, actually, no, I will put the sphere. Now if I put the sphere under the cube, this will be a lot more apparent. So this is where center and pivot comes in hand. Wherever this object is, that is the pivot. But if you want the center of all objects, then you can click on, well, pivot, change it to center, and now it's affecting the center of all objects. I'm going to put it on pivot, just to allow you to see what's going on with parenting. So right now, the cube is the parent, and the sphere is the child. Wherever the parent goes, the child goes with. So if I move the cube, you can see that the sphere also follows no matter how I move it. Same thing with rotations. If I rotate it, it's always going to stay in that same spot with the cube relative to the cube. Now, if I go back to the sphere and I move the sphere, you can see that nothing really is going to happen. I can scale the sphere and everything else. But when I do it to the parent, not the child but the parent, and I say scale it, everything stays the same. The numbers don't change basically within here. If you look at the transform, if I reset this and just move it out of the way, changes to 2, put it on that side. Now, over on the sphere, we see that it's 2 and everything else is default. If we rotate this again, and we come back over to the sphere, everything is still the same. So that's just something to keep in mind when something is doing what you don't think it should be doing. Just make sure that you're doing it right. So all of our 3D objects are under the 3D object tab, all the 2D objects under the 2D, FX, inner effects, lights, so on and so forth. So now I'm going to show you how to create a couple of other things that don't deal with your 3D scene. For instance, a folder to organize all of your components. So I have a couple of scripts here, nothing too fancy, but this is going to get really ugly really fast if you're making a lot of scripts. So I'm going to right click in a blank spot, not on something, because if I right click on it, then, well, I guess the options are still there. But I'm going to click on the empty space, right click on the empty space, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call this folder my scripts. And I'm going to hold left control, click, click, click. Or let's say I don't want movers in there, I'll click left control and click movers. But assuming that I want all of this stuff, I can also hold shift click the first one and click the last one with shift and then move it all at once. Now all my scripts are thankfully in here. So I'm going to create yet again another, now let's change it up. I'm going to create a capsule. I'm going to reset the transform. So we see that within this capsule there are a couple of tabs: transform, capsule, mesh render, and capsule collider. And of course there is the material. Now these are components. Basically every individual one has a special property that do one thing or another. Some of them you can disable, some of them you cannot. So if I disable the capsule collider, you won't be able to see it visually because it's something that deals with the physics engine in Unity. But something like the mesh render, if we disable it, you'll be able to see it disappear because the mesh, the thing that you see, the thing that renders it, is being disabled. So I'm going to, bada bing, bada bow, bada bing, go to the beginning, not use any of those. But I'm going to right click, create, and I'm going to go to C# script. This is my script. This is the thing that runs the code. This is the coding. And I'm going to call this color changer. I'm going to press enter to confirm, and now I'm going to double click it to launch Visual Studio. Now Visual Studio may or may not launch for you, and that is perfectly fine. You may be launched in Mono Develop, but I would personally recommend Visual Studio. I've had problems in the past with Mono Develop and Visual Studio. I just have not had those kind of same problems. So if we go to edit, we go all the way down to preferences, click on that. There will be a general section right up on the top, and with general selected, you can come over here to my apologies, you come over to external tools, and then you have the external script editor. You can click on that, and you'll probably have Mono Develop in here, and if you don't, congratulations, that is perfectly fine and honestly perfect. Make sure you have Visual Studio enabled to use Visual Studio. Once you're done with that, you can X out of it, and then we can continue on with our thing over here. So again, once you double click on your script and you have Visual Studio open, I have this issue currently where if I open it, I have to open it a second time to actually get it to open. But this is what you will see. You'll see system using system not collection, system collection is generic, using Unity Engine, and then that's just basic stuff that you don't have to worry about at the moment. What we are going to worry about is everything right below it. This is where your main script is ran. So public class color changer, if you recall, that is the thing that we named our script color changer. So if you do happen to edit the name of the script, make sure you edit the name on the inside. Do keep in mind that there are no spaces. Do not add spaces to your script names because that will cause problems in your script. As you can see, a whole bunch of red, and red is bad. So make sure there are no spaces in your name when you create the scripts. So during start, this program is ran as soon as the game is started, and an update continuously runs it over and over again. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm just right on the start. Let's see. Right on this update, in the update, I'm going to want to move my cube. So in order to move this cube, I'm going to want game object. Oh, and you see the how it kind of autofilled, right? So if I type in game again, just typing it in and keeping your cursor, you can use the arrows to go up and down. But keeping your highlight over game object, it tells you exactly what it is. So game object is a type of game object, and it gets itself. And there's a little description underneath it that says the game object this component is attached to. A component is always attached to a game object. So basically what that means is it is getting this individual thing. So game object dot transform dot translate. This moves the transform in the direction and distance of translation. And I'm going to open parentheses, and I'm going to say vector3 dot forwards. This will move it in the global forward direction, and if I really wanted to move it in the local, which is, whichever way the object is facing forwards, I can say game object dot transform dot forward, and this gets you your game object's forward direction times time dot delta time, because we want it to be able to go at a reasonable speed, times speed. Now there is no speed variable yet, but we're going to create that real quick. So I'm going to copy speed. I'm going to make a public, so that way I can see it in the inspector and edit it through other scripts. Float, because we want it to be able to be a number between 0 and 1, not just 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to call it speed. Then we can set that equal to 1, and then close that. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to come over here, the red squiggly, keep those in mind, expected semicolon. So I'm going to semicolon, just like that. Going to save, and I'm going to come back over to Unity by minimizing this tab, and here I am. On the bottom right, you may have a little compiling logo showing that it's compiling, and that's perfectly fine. Something I forget to do a lot, which I hope you don't forget as much as I do, is I forget to take the script that I just created, the color changer. It says up here in the inspector also, color changer. I'm going to select my capsule so I can see all of its components, and I'm going to click and drag my component over here, and then release in the inspector. Now you see the speed variable, which is something I set to public. Watch if I change it to private, then what's going to happen is it will disappear. Just like that. But we want it to be public so we can change it. So if I hit play, we will see it slowly floating forwards. Now I'm going to see if we can't stop it. So if I create a cube, push it down over here. Ooh, seems to just go right through. That's really unfortunate. Well, that is because there has to be a rigid body which deals with physics. This does not really do anything physics related yet, and well, that's fine for now. We're just gonna deal with that, because what I really want to show you is how everything works, how coding works. Everything about it is just so great, because there's the secret that I learned that if I would have learned sooner, I would have gotten so much farther. So that secret, I'm just gonna go right into the script editor, is get component. So let's say we want to change the color, basically, the color of our capsule. So what we're going to do is we're going to game object, which is the object that the script is attached to, dot get component, open or less than sign, it'll autofill with the greater than sign also. And we're going to get the mesh render. And we're going to finish that off with a pair of closing brackets, or not brackets, but parentheses, dot material dot color equals color dot white. Well, I mean, sorry, right? So let's change a different color, blue. This right here, get component, is the secret. If I would have known this much sooner, I'd probably be much more advanced in Unity. But get component is the most precious thing in Unity when you're scripting. So I saved it, and we should see that our material turns blue. So I'm going to come back over into Unity. I'm going to hit play. And, oh look, it's blue now. That is absolutely perfect. So, come back over here. We change it to blue component. If you're never sure what to put here or what you're trying to edit, make sure you know where the thing you're trying to edit is. So I know that mesh renderer has the materials and it has the default material. And I'm saying get the material, and I'm setting the material color, which this material, default material, is right here, default material at the bottom. And I'm setting this to blue. And that's why it changes to blue. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create a public color, and I'm going to change this to cap color. I'm going to set that, I'm going to set that equal to color dot blue. So now, since I have a color right here called cap color, instead of saying color dot blue over here, I can say cap color, because cap color is a color. And this cap color is equal to the color dot blue, which is blue, as we know. So now I'm going to come back over here. You'll see under the script, if you click on it, by the way, it'll expand and despan. You'll see it's blue. So if I come over here and hit play, I can actually set this variable to 0, or in fact, I can set it to -1. It'll come back, or 2, or 3, or 4. It'll come back faster. And I can change the color of the thing, of our capsule, simply because I have a public variable that I can change directly. So let's say I like that hot pink. Well, bang, hot pink. Or let's say I like that magical purple. Or let's say I like that light watered down green. Or even watered down water. Or just black. You can also make it just black. It's all personal preference. But it's all because of having a public thing. So a float is a number, a color is a color, and we give those things a name, which allows us to put them in our scripts, and then we can change them outside of the script, which is very, very helpful for development. So now that you know about this, let's just take a quick look over the inspector real quick again. So with the inspector, you can actually change variables directly, just like this. I move my mouse. Oh, and if you're trying to grab this, trying to do it, it won't work. You have to grab the letter itself to move it. That's pretty much how it works. There's nothing else really to it. For the inspector, at least. Oh, I guess you can also click and drag things into areas. So let's say you have a public game object, thing1. Now, you don't actually have to assign anything to anything. You can just say things simply like this. And just like cap color or speed, you can come in here and say thing1, and I want it to move. I just want it to move. So thing1 dot transform dot translate vector3 dot up. So I just want it to go up basically. And of course times time dot delta time and times speed. So with that little bit of code right there, I'll show you exactly how that works. So it's going to give us a new thing1, just like this over here. We're going to create a 3D object. I'm going to create a cube. It's way over here. It's nice. And if I click on the capsule to get the capsule back, I can actually, if you click down and let go, you'll see the inspector change. So I'm going to click down. Inspector hasn't changed, but when I let go, it changed. So you can actually click and drag the cube from the hierarchy into the inspector. Now, this script will know that thing1 is in fact what I put here. So since it knows it's a cube now, it's going to say, hey, get the cube and move it up at this speed. So now when I hit play, we see it going up just like that. And if I decrease the speed, it works pretty seamlessly, pretty smoothly, pretty nicely. I like it all. It's great. But get component. That is the most important thing if you want to do things. So for instance, I'm going to create another script that's going to take keyboard input. Create C# script, keyboard input, just like this. Gonna double click on it, and now we see that we have keyboard input open. You can also switch between tabs just like this by left clicking on the tabs, go back and forth. Oh, and just like we created a public color, you can, in this case, create a public color changer, which is the name of the script up here. This name, but from this script, color changer. And we could give it a name. So CC. I'll name color changer CC. And I'll just send that. So now, at the beginning, I can say find component or find object of type, open this bracket, and I want it to find the color changer in my scene. And I'm going to end that with the open and close parentheses and close that off. Now it's going to find this, but it's not doing anything with it. I want color changer to be equal to what it finds, which should be a color changer. Now with that set, I can say, let's go an if statement. If input, which takes input from the keyboard, dot get key down, which only calls it once if the key is pressed for the first time, key code dot R. So if I press R, I want to tell the CC or the color changer, hey, change your color or your cap color. You see how autofill is really great. Change your cap color to, so I want it to be equal to color dot red. And so when I press R, if input dot get key down, key code dot R, then it will run this script right here. It'll take the cap color and it'll change it to red. Now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it right below it. And let's say I want blue back. So if I press B, then we're going to change it to color dot blue. And one more time, let's say we want it back to white, its original state, color dot white. Now, not every color exists, and you can actually create colors. But if you're curious about that, watch a tutorial, watch something that'll tell you how to create custom colors. In fact, yeah. So with this saved, I'm going to come back over here to Unity, and I'm going to attach this to anything in my scene that doesn't do anything, that does not delete. So if I come over here to my light component and minimize everything, we see that my keyboard input is right there. Now, something I can do is I can actually, even my capsule has the color changer on it. If I drag my capsule over here to the CC component, it'll actually take it from the capsule and then add the capsule itself directly. So now when I hit play, and I press to say W, oh look, change white, B for blue, R for red. Red, white, and blue. Happy 4th of July, everybody, by the way. And that is how you take keyboard input. It is how you modify other scripts, and this, honestly, is how you do absolutely everything. If there's anything you do not understand, please, please just go over some tutorials, videos. If you're curious about how to make something do something, simply go to Google Chrome, open a new tab, and then search it. For instance, Unity. How to scale objects with code. And typically the first thing, scripting API transform.localscale dash unity, or in this case the URL is docs.unity3d.com/script references. This will be your best friend. With this, you literally get a prime example on how to change the scale of something. So in fact, I'm just going to copy this line of code and I'm just going to paste it directly into my thing. So if, oops, if input dot get key, so I'm using get key, which means it constantly gets if that key is enabled or not, key code, and what would be something good? Ooh, so this is something I would like you guys to understand also. If input dot get access, which basically if you use get access, you can plug in a controller and use a controller directly, horizontal and vertical. So let's say you have a joystick and you want to get the left and right input. Well, you can actually use get access, and then we have to give it a string, and make sure you spell it correctly. It has to start with a capital, and it has to be spelled correctly. So if I get horizontal, which is left and right, and this returns a value between -1 and 1. If it's not equal to 0, then I want it to run this. So I want the CC, check this out, that I want this piece, this color changer, and I want to get whatever it's attached to. CC dot game object. This gets the game object that the script CC is attached to. And I want to get dot transform dot local scale. Oh, I said I was going to copy and paste, but now I'm just coding it. So we have transform dot local scale. So game object dot transform dot local scale, which is exactly what I have. Game object dot transform dot local scale plus equals new vector3, because we're creating a vector3. We don't want any other presets. And we're going to change it to a value, basically. We're going to change it to whatever the value is. So I'm just going to say value, value. Oops, that's not it. And that's not it either. So I'm going to create that variable first. So it's going to be a float, and we're going to call it value, and it's going to be equal to the game object's current local transform dot x, because we just want one of the variables. We don't need x, we don't need y or z, just x, just in one of them. And we're going to multiply that by, or no, sorry, we're going to add time dot delta time times speed. Oh, but there's no speed, so how are we going to use speed from another script? We're going to say cc dot speed. Again, cc, just in case you're lost, is the color changer from this script right here. We can either assign it in Unity by going over to the component and dragging the capsule or whatever has the component directly onto there. Or you can say this, cc.find object of type color changer, which is again the name of the script, and it will actually find the color changer in your scene, wherever it may be. Float value, we're going to change this local scale, and we're going to add the speed and time.delta time. Actually, we're also going to multiply it by, you probably guessed it, this. Why are we multiplying it by this? Well, if I press A, it'll be a negative value, and if I press D, it'll be a positive value, because horizontal axis on a keyboard with keyboard mouse is A and D. On a controller, it's left stick with left and right. So I'm getting the horizontal axis, and if I'm not pressing any buttons, it'll be 0. So anything times 0 is 0. And so then I'm just going to get rid of this because we're just modifying it based off the values. Now if I go value, 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 just like that, vector 3 takes 3 numbers. If I save this and come back over here, I know it's a little bit of a tedious process, but honestly just exposure is the best thing to start somewhere. So now if I press A or D, then you'll see it gets smaller with A, and it gets bigger with D. So I'm going to reset this component, transform, go back to the game, and I'm going to have AD, 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 and if we go over to transform, you'll see this increasing, decreasing A, D, A, D. So apart from that, that's pretty much it. You've basically learned how to create a script. You've learned how to make public and private variables. Oh, and I should probably show you real quick. So if I went over back to the script, we have a public game object called thing1. If I say cc dot thing, oh, it pops up right there because it's public. If I change it to private, then it is hidden. It is literally private. So now if I type in thing1 dot thing, it's not even showing up. No matter what you do, it's not going to be visible. And it even says right here, color changer dot thing on the very bottom of that box that popped up is inaccessible due to its protection level. So if you want to be able to access things, make sure it is public. That is very, very important. So, other than a quick recap, I showed you how to create a Unity project. I showed you how to move around in Unity. I showed you how to create objects in Unity, folders and scripts, and then I showed you a little bit of programming. I showed you how to move something with GameObject.transform.translate. I showed you a little bit about the inspector and how when you create a script, what will show up when you create things. I showed you how to get component, the secret, the thing that lets you do things. Which is over here in this script, get component. And I finally showed you how to modify things like color, and I showed you how to get input from a keyboard and mouse and possibly even controller. Well, anyways, thank you for tuning in. I am glad that you learned something today, assuming that you learned something today. Happy 4th of July, and if you want more videos like this, just let me know. I'll hook you up and teach you everything I know. Until then, bye-bye.